قالت أمة لعنت أختها حتى إذا اداركوا فيها جميعا قالت أخراهم لأولاهم ربنا هؤلاء أضلونا فآتهم عذابا ضعفا من النار قال لكل ضعف ولكن لا تعلمون. وقالت أولاهم لأخراهم فما كان لكم علينا من فضل فذوقوا العذاب بما كنتم تكسبون. إن الذين كذبوا بآياتنا واستكبروا عنها لا تفتح لهم أبواب السماء ولا يدخلون الجنة حتى يلج الجمل في سم الخياط وكذلك نجزي المجرمين. لهم من جهنم محاد ومن فوقهم غواش وكذلك نجزي الظالمين. والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها أولئك أصحاب الجنة هم فيها خالدون. ونزعنا ما في صدورهم من غل تجري من تحتهم الأنهار وقالوا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق ونودوا أن تلكم الجنة أورثتموها بما كنتم تعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Saturday, 22nd August, eve of 3rd of Muharram, 1442. All programs are to be held online. The daily ladies' morning majlis starts at 10:30 a.m. with Quran. English lecture will be delivered by Zakira Banin Mirali and Urdu majlis by Zakira Mrs. Wakil. Tonight, in conjunction with Hyderi, join us live for a special program with Shaykh Vinay Khetia, Sayyid Ammar, Zakira Banin Mirali, hosted by Ali Hashim Bandali. The program will commence at 11 p.m. tonight. Tomorrow, Sunday the 23rd of August, eve of 4th of Ashray Muharram 1442. The program is as follows: Adhan at 8:18, Quran recitation at 9 o'clock, announcements 9:05, Marthia at 9:10, Majlis in Urdu and English at 9:20 by Dr. Hassan Kumaili and Shaykh Vinay Khetia respectively in conjunction with Hyderi. Matam will be at 10:15 and the program will end with Ziyara at 10:25. Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Salawat.
जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही तू न आया गाजी जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही तू न आया गाजी हमको पानी ना मिले तेरी खुशबू तो रहे तेरे بازو نہ کٹے، چاہے مشکی زچ دے، یہ مگر ہو نہ سکا تیرے بازو ہے جدا، تجھ پہ ہے تشنا لبی تو نہ آیا غازی، جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی، دھوپ میں تو تھا شجر تجھ سے آباد تھا گر، ہے برہنا میرا سر کیا نہیں تجھ کو خبر، اے علمدار وفا اس بہن کو باخدا، تجھ سے دھارس تھی بڑی تو نہ آیا غازی، جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی، آ گئی شام علم لٹ گئے اہل حرم، ریت پر جلتی ہوئی ہو گیا ٹھنڈا علم، پرسہ دینے کے لیے مجھ سے ملنے کے لیے آ گئے بابا علی تو نہ آیا غازی، جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی، کیا کہوں شعر میرے بیردا ہم کو لیے، یہ مسلمان سارے شہر در شہر گئے، خلقت کوفہ کبھی خلقت شام کبھی، بارہا ہم پہ ہنسی تو نہ آیا غازی، جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی، رویا ریحان قلم کر کے یہ بات رقم، خون میں ڈوب گیا میرے غازی کا علم، زخمی زینب کا جگر خوف شاہ کا سر، آئے خیموں میں شقی تو نہ آیا غازی، جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی، جب ردا سر سے چھنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی، پر محمد
اعوذ باللہ السمیع العلیم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على خيرة خلق الله وهو أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الميامين المهديين ولا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. Allah in Surah Al-Ankabut reminds us that do people think that they will be left to say, we believe, but they shall not be tested? وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. That every generation has had tests of its own. And last night we spoke about the importance of Mahdawiyya in Islam, in Tashayyu. We spoke about the Mahdi, may Allah hasten his reappearance, and may our souls be ransomed under his feet, as being the actualization of the plan of God, of the justice of God, of the container of the secrets of God, the container of all the knowledge of the Anbiya and the Mursaleen, and the A'immah and Imams that came before him, of his forefathers. And we spoke about some of the responsibilities in that regard. And we spoke about how Imam al-Hussein is described as Warith Adam Safwatillah, and how Imam al-Mahdi is himself describes himself as Baqiyatu Adam, right? That the remnants of Nabi Adam is with me, and of all the Anbiya and the Mursaleen. And we see how the mission of Imam al-Mahdi is the continuation of the mission of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, which all of it comes back to one mission, which is a mission of enlightenment. The mission of rising above ourselves to live a life of greater, deeper meaning. And we spoke about that. Now today, the verse that I began with is meant to get us thinking that it is not enough for us to say these things without being tested. That people should not think they'll be left to say Amanna wahum la yuftanun, and they will not be tested. There will not be a period of fitna. For us, of course, that fitna is of many different types. One of them is the ghaibah. There's no doubt that the occultation in some ways is a period of test for the Shia, because they're in a school with a principal, but a principal they cannot see. So the principal's working off-site, so to speak. But he's still working. He's still there. But we can't see that principal every day with us in a very visible and a physical way. But he's there. Otherwise, the school wouldn't exist without him. So as I mentioned the other night, it's not an obvious principle, but the principle is there. But that's nevertheless a great test for our community. It's a great test of our time. And we are all being led towards one destination, which is a destination of ultimate salvation in the eyes of God. As we describe in Ziyarat al-Ashura, al-Maqam al-Mahmud, Right? What are we praying? We're asking Allah to take us to Al-Maqam Al-Mahmud, which is the highest station. And for us to be with the Mahdi in seeking the thar and the justice for the spilt and madhloom blood of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Talaba Tariq ma'a Imam Mansur. Right? We discussed this. However, we currently live in a time of complete madness. Literally. And now we can do a few things. As I spoke about last night, as I mentioned last night, these are all well and fine. And I always remind my students of this, and I remind myself that I may come and say all kinds of nice things, and people say, oh, well, mashallah, Imam Mahdi is talking about Nabi Adam and the asrar of Allah, wa allama Adam al-asma kullaha, and Allah taught Adam all the names, and all the names are with Imam al-Mahdi, and this is all miraculous and so amazing, and all that. That's all well and fine. And that's important. This is our aqeedah, yes. But what does that do to us? Does it make us better people? That when we hear these things, are we pushed to be better Shia, to be better mu'mineen? What does it do to us within our hearts? Is there a movement within us when we hear the name of our Imam? Do we feel like we're becoming better Shia, better followers of the Ahlul Bayt, better lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do we feel, have our children been affected by this or not? This is another question that we would ask. That the children that we are raising today, are we truly raising them to be in the company and the hizb and the party of Sahib al-Zaman? Is that the first objective that we give them? If not, what is the root of the crisis? Because if we are not doing this, then we are in a state of crisis. Then we need to ask, what is the root of that crisis and madness? Because anything other than this is a state of complete madness. Any objective outside of this for a follower of Ahlul Bayt, for a self-acclaimed follower of Ahlul Bayt, is a complete state of self-imposed madness. So now we have to ask, what is the roots of this madness? And what are some of the options that we have? We can remove ourselves from the madness around us that's causing deviation and causing people to swerve from the path, causing their hearts to become black and dark, full of doubt and shukuk and cynicism and jealousy and sin and opinions that they don't even know where they come from, but they want to speak about the things that they don't know. Right? La taqfu ma laysa laka. Right? As the Quran says, don't take a position on things that you don't have knowledge of. Right? Don't take a position on things that you don't have knowledge of. فَإِنَّ السَّمْعَ, for the ears and the eyes and the heart and the fu'ad, كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا, for we will be questioned about all of this. Yet we live in a world of complete madness because nobody cares about any of this. Everybody just says what's on their mind. We live in a world of emotions. Now there's a couple of options that we have here. One, we can escape the madhouse altogether. Maybe that's possible. Going off into a small city, small town, live on a farm with your family, homeschool your kids. It's an option for some people. It's not possible for everybody. It's a possibility though. Where there's a will, there's a way. Different strokes for different folks, different solutions for different folks. Yeah. Number two, join the madness. Become mad yourself. With all this rubbish and filth around us. Or option number three, which is perhaps a very venerable option, And maybe there are other options as well. These are just three that, maybe mu'mineen have other options as well. Think about it. These are just three possible options. Option number 3 is become a nurse in the madhouse and start helping. Nurse ourselves and nurse others around us. But we're in a madhouse. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not making light of this. I'm really not making light of this. And to embrace the Imam of our time through the mission of Imam al-Hussein, which is what we do exactly in Ziyarat Ashura, don't we? We embrace both of them together. This is the only way out of this complete nihilism, meaning this world without any meaning, without any substance. A world without anything that transcends beyond us into another realm, into another world, into another realm of existence. So let's begin in addressing this, because the solutions will require grit, deep conviction, and this deep sense of belonging to the path of Sahib al-Zaman. This deep sense of desire, craving, and zeal to belong to the party with the will of Allah, with the grace of Allah, with the rahmah of Allah, to belong to the hizb of Sahib al-Zaman, to belong to his party. And if we want this, we cannot be apologetic about it. I am very sorry. I need to say this. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, we cannot be apologetic about this. We are always apologizing about everything. I don't know why. Why Muslims tend to be always sorry about things so often. If we want to join the Hizb of Sahib al-Zaman, he's not looking for apologetic weaklings, either men or women. He's not looking for spineless, apologetic Muslims. He's looking for people that have azima and ikrar, determination and steadfastness and the sense of strength in his path. All of that to seek justice in the name of the one who was slaughtered on the plains of Karbala. Because that is the battle cry of the Mahdi. Ya li tharat al-Hussein. So I come to the same question, which is, what are the roots of this? Why the profound importance on the Mahdi again? Meaning, what are the roots of the crisis? And on the other hand, why the profound importance on the Imam and his mission and his teachings, either in ghaiba or dhuhur, as being so necessary for us to accept and to love and to believe and to follow, an indispensable aspect of being an azadar of Imam al-Hussein. On one hand, and on the other hand, what are the roots of the crisis which is not allowing us or limiting us to join his mission, or limiting us from joining his mission? Firstly and foremost, and I want to make something clear, there's only one ummah, which is shahida ala nas, which is a witness to all of creation. And that is the ummah of the Rasul and the Ahlul Bayt. It is not liberal Western democracy. It is not Michelle Obama and Barack Obama and the power couple in the White House. We should not be apologetic about these things. I realize many people are listening to this, and this is no insult to anybody. We respect everybody's, opinions, in the sense that we live in a world in which people have different opinions. Fine, we don't have to agree with it. This is not to say that we're putting anyone down. We're simply saying that we believe the best way of life, the best ummah that has ever been brought, ukhrijat lil-nas, that has ever been brought for mankind is what? Is the ummah of Rasulullah. Why? Because the Quran tells us so. The Quran tells us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this in the Quran, does he not? And we believe that that ummah has a leader. That ummah has a purpose. That ummah is driven by one hujjah. And when that ummah bonds itself to that hujjah, to that proof of Allah, it then becomes the witness, the example, and the archetype for all of creation, for all the world. Sometimes we get caught up in all this notion of, oh, I can vote and this and that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with democracy. These are all good systems. Each have their pros and their cons, and people are allowed to live in peace, and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Don't get me wrong here. But let's not forget that the ummah of the Qa'im is the only exemplary ummah for mankind. That is the only exemplary community for mankind. It is the model society, the model family, no different than the family of the Prophet, of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam al-Hussein. That is the family and the ummah that was, and the kind of ummah that was espoused by the Prophet and the Aimah before him. And this is what Abu Abdullah died for. This is what he sacrificed his life for. This is why his blood was spilt. Because an ummah that is led by a ma'soom imam will never be like an ummah that is not. Even an ummah that is guided by a ma'soom imam while he is in ghaibah will never be like an ummah that is not guided by a ma'soom imam. There's no comparison. Likewise, a family, a masjid, a community, a school. So we have to ask, what's the rule book of this ummah? What are the standards of this ummah? What are the requirements of membership in this ummah, in this community? What are the rules and regulations? Where's the rule book for it? And who are the role models? You know, I'll give you a little story here. Before that, recite as-salatu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I met some youth, some youngsters. I meet youngsters all the time, alhamdulillah. Some young sisters, and they had to, they had a project in school where they had to choose a role model, and it was a big project, and it was one of their ISUs, the independent study units. And most of the girls chose Michelle Obama, again coming back to her. And I was sitting and thinking, is there anyone else in the world that you could choose? What is it that you see in her? Again, nothing against her. It's not here to insult her or anything. She's a great humanitarian, done a lot of humanitarian work, so on and so forth. Again. But as followers of Ahlul Bayt, as followers of Sahib al-Zaman, would that be your first choice? These are our Shia youth. What is wrong with the parents that raised those children? Where is the ghira for Islam and Muslimin and Ahlul Bayt? Salamullahi alayhim ajma'in. Lakum dinukum waliya deen. Not insulting anyone's religion or anyone else's way of life or even some of the good things that they have done. But do we have no role models? That sisters have to choose this particular figure as their role model? What does it say about the family in which that child has grown up? What does it say perhaps about the parents that were okay with them doing that project if they knew? What does it say about the future? What does it say about the aqeedah and beliefs of people? These are hard questions. I know that they're uncomfortable, but if we don't ask the hard questions, we're not going to get at answers here. We can come and talk about Sahibul Zaman, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraja, and all of this. Yes, alhamdulillah, may Allah hasten his reappearance and bring his justice. But if our aqeedah in our hearts is, and it's no fault to these youngsters at all. They have been failed either by their parents, by their community, by their teachers, by whoever has failed them. And then they have failed themselves as baligh or baligha individuals. This is not a matter of halal and haram, it's a matter of priorities. Of what is a priority of your heart, of what is it that brings you this sense of fulfillment to write about something so important to you. There's no women in your community to choose from? Bint al-Huda, the sister of Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, or maybe some of the great women in Iran, in the Islamic system. Other ladies of the past even, why not? Sayyidah Zainab, or those women that you see today that are following best the path of Zainab bint Ali, that when you see them, those ladies around you remind you of Zainab bint Ali? Why Obama? Like seriously? For what? Okay, for the humanitarian side of things, fine. There's many good human beings in this world. Is that going to take you towards paradise? Does she remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Again, I'm not saying that it was something haram or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's just a sign that there is a deep problem in how people relate to the deen, or the lack of any relation to it, or the lack of belonging to it, the lack of atifa and attachment to it, the lack of ghira for it. And it starts, I'll be very honest, with the parents who don't raise kids in the environment like in which we're looking here perhaps, or don't take interest in what their kids are doing every day, or don't even see it as being a philosophical problem, which itself is another problem. And we want to talk about, oh Allah, bless me to be among those that seek the vengeance of Imam Hussein. Again, this is not to accuse anyone of anything. This is just an example I'm using, a story, just an example. It doesn't even have to be real people, just an example. Again, nothing to say that these are bad individuals or we hate them. No, nothing like that at all. Nothing. They have done good things, they have done not good things, fine. God will judge them. Leave it. It's nothing about hating anybody or disliking anybody, no. But in the level of spiritual and emotional and psychological priorities, where do they rank in comparison to the other great ladies or great men or women in our history and our time? That's the question I'll ask according to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That would Sahib al-Zaman assign her to the children if he was teaching the class? As a daughter of Hussein, we are endeavoring to discover our purpose in this world, in the eyes of God. And without the Imam of our time, we will lose this purpose. And there is a seen element to this and an unseen element to this. There's an element of this that can be visualized and actualized with the Imam's coming, with the deliverance of justice. When we close our eyes, we see his back towards the Kaaba, making his first speech. May Allah, inshallah, bless some of us with perhaps being there in front of him soon. Allah knows best. Inshallah. And then there's an unseen aspect to this, which is he is still the principal of the school, but we can't see him. So how do we work with the principal that we can't see, but we know he is there and active and helping us? That's the unseen element. That's the faith aspect of it. That's the aqid, that's the part that really relates to aqidah as well, and belief. So it's not only here about the fact that God exists. God exists, fine. I'll leave that statement with you. Recite a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. God exists, fine. Let's put that out there. Now the question after that would be, so what? What does that mean to my life that God exists? How does that change my life? How does that belief in the existence of a creator affect my life? Transform my life? How does it transform my life? How does it transform who I am as a person? What does it mean to me? Now, what are our responsibilities towards it? Now, we can either build a house made of cement or a house of straw. A house built of cement is built on this very premise that answers the question that God exists, and yes, there's a purpose behind his existence. And the existence of the Hujjah and the Mahdi is the deliverance of that purpose. That every day we wake up to that purpose and we remember that purpose. A house that's built on straws is a house that does not endeavor to answer these questions and live by the answers to these questions. Or a house of cards. One little problem, the whole house comes crumbling down. It's not built on yaqeen and certainty and ma'rifat and understanding. And that's why we find some of these emotional and psychological and spiritual problems. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And we have to find room for the Imam in our hearts. We have to find room for his light to occupy our hearts. And at its center is our moral compass. That our moral compass must be guided by him. Now, many people throw these words around, moral compass, or or rightly guided, or good leader, or whatever it is that people throw around as different words today. These are not just feel-good words. They have a specific definition of what is morally true, what is morally untrue, what is morally right, what is morally wrong. It's not for us to determine. It's not for us to set the parameters to this conversation. Those parameters are already set. It's up to us whether we want to live by them or not. These are not based on my feelings, on whether I woke up today and feel this choice is morally correct or morally wrong. We have a foundation which is built through the Quran and the Sunnah, through the Hujjah, through the existence of Imams, through the existence of their traditions, that give us a guidance to live our life every single day. And we turn to Ziyarat ala Yasin, one of our most beautiful ziyarat. Recite a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In Ziyarat ala Yasin, which is a ziyarat taught to us by Sahib al-Zaman, a ziyarat that is taught to us by Sahib al-Zaman, one of the most authentic ziyarat that we have. It's a beautiful ziyarat, where he says that when you want to turn to Allah through us, this is how you do it. And he gives us some beautiful guidance in this ziyarah. And in there he says something so powerful. He says, فَالْحَقْ مَا رَضَيْتُمُوهُ وَالْبَاطِلُ مَا أَسْخَطْتُمُوهُ. He says that truth is that which you are happy with. That whatever is true in this dunya, whatever is true in my mind, in my heart, in my actions, in my projects, it is what you are satisfied with, Ya Sahib. It is your satisfaction. That there is no haqq outside of your rida and satisfaction and happiness. And there is no batil, untruth, wrong, except it brings about your anger and your displeasure. Choices are not based on how we feel. They're based on objective criteria that has been taught to us by the Quran and the Sunnah. Here we have the definition of wilayah. Yet the forces of cultural decline are all around us. And the question that I will ask is, to what extent can mainstream society remain a viable option for those seeking to live a traditional spiritual life? And if it will remain a viable option, how will it remain a viable option? I'm not saying it won't, but how? For those who wish to live a traditional spiritual life, as outlined by the Sahib al-Zaman in Ziyarat al-Yasin, how will they do it when the forces of cultural decline and the floodwaters have already entered the homes? There are ways to do it, and we'll discuss those ways. Because otherwise, this azadari and gatherings of mourning are for what? For what maqsad? For what purpose? Let me give you an example of what I mean by cultural decline. There was a bus driver in Morocco. True story, by the way. True story. One of the shuyukh tells the story. There was a bus driver in Morocco. And he was coming from one of the villages to one of the major cities. I don't remember the name, maybe Fez or one of the major cities. And he was traveling with mu'mineen and various brothers and sisters on the bus, going from one of the very smaller towns, villages, visiting the city. For many of them, it was the first time going this far, visiting the big city. And as they entered the city, the bus driver says that they started screaming. They were in complete chaos, complete breakdown. They just went crazy. In the sense that they just were, I'm not using that in a pejorative way. I don't mean to use that in a negative way for those who are, I just mean that their emotions got the better of them. They were extremely distraught. You want to know why? Because they saw naked tourists basically walking around in the swimsuits, right? And they said, Ya waylada, wa Muhammad. Look how sensitive their hearts were. Do our hearts have this sensitivity? That they had literally had an emotional breakdown. Basically yelling, Wa Muhammad. Oh, Muhammad, oh Muhammad, this is your ummah. Seeing these bathing suits everywhere. They couldn't imagine that people would literally be walking around like this in Morocco. It is what it is. That's the question that I'm asking, right? That if we stand any chance to maintain some element of our traditional spiritual life, we are going to have to rise against the tide. We are going to have to be countercultural. We are going to have to be different. It ain't a cookie cutter solution. And for any one of you, my dear brothers and sisters, who are trying to do it, may Allah bless you and your families for whatever small or minimal efforts you are making. But they're not minimal, they're great. You may think they're minimal or they're small, but they're not. Because to stand against the tide, to travel upstream in the midst of a valley of bathing suits and a world which, is clearly different from the values taught to us in Ziyarat in Al Yasin, is a difficult world in which to live. And I'm not saying to give up hope, because we are always hopeful. As the Prophet has said, Al-Islam bada'a ghariban wa sayaudu ghariba. That Islam began estranged and will end estranged. Fatuba lil ghuraba. And blessed are those that are ghuraba, that are estranged, that find themselves on the outside, that just somehow don't fit in. They don't find themselves that they belong, so much so. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Like I said, it requires something bold. Most philosophers tell us that one of the ways that we can understand a society or a family or a community. Now here I'm not speaking about the broader society of non-Muslims, because to each is their own. Lakum dinukum waliya din. It's not to say that others should change their views, what their views are. To them is their religion, to ours is our religion. They live in peace, we live in peace. Everybody lives in peace with our neighbors. We respect their rights, they respect ours. We cherish the peace that we have in this society of tolerance and neighborliness and all of that. Yes. But one of the ways that philosophers say you can kind of get an idea, get the pulse of a civilization or a society or even a family, is to see how they approach issues of intimacy, marriage, and gender. How do they approach gender relations, issues of intimacy, and family values? These are usually the first ones to break. And then the floodgates just open and it's fair game on everything. So we need to each ask ourselves as families, as individuals, as mu'mineen and mu'minat. We know what the values of Rasulullah are. We don't need to articulate that here. I don't think we need to repeat ourselves. For I would not insult your intelligence to do that. Where do we stand on these most important issues of our age and our time? This is a sign of a way or a method by which you can get the pulse of a civilization. As Charles Taylor himself says in The Secular Age. The ideological choices that we make today, especially my age group, that is in the 30s to the 40s, not giving away the exact age, let's just say 30s to 40s. Those, early millennials, those born in the 80s, mid 70s to mid 80s, whose kids are now coming up. The ideological choices that we make today will have profound ramifications on the future, on our children, on our grandchildren. The ways that we choose to raise our children, the ideological formation that we choose to input into, and the foundation, the ideological and creedal and theological foundation of our homes and our communities and our madrasas and our ummah and our little communities, whether they be small or big, from the family outwards, will have astronomical implications for what Islam will look like 25 years, 40 years, 50 years from now, or even less, 5 or 10 years from now. And I am already seeing these implications and ramifications, and their astronomical impact both in the positive and the negative, both in the light and the darkness, unfortunately. And most of it revolves around matters of gender, family, and matters of how we deal with intimacy. and the ahkam and the adab and the regulations and the issues revolving around these issues as taught by the Ahlul Bayt to us. When this starts crumbling and it starts breaking and there starts getting holes and cracks in the foundation, that's usually a telltale sign that the barbarians have already banged at the gate and the gate's coming down. You know, a Pew study tells us, a Pew Research Center study says that 1 in 3 18 to 29-year-olds have put religion aside, in America at least. And I would say in the UK and Canada it's very similar statistics. And I don't think Muslims are very far behind always. Entirely. I'm not saying, I'm not giving a dire outlook for people here. There's good and there's bad, but we have to sometimes focus on the things that we need to improve on. We already know the things that we're doing good. We have beautiful mosques and communities and majalis and alims that mashallah, scholars that come to speak, and we get to go for ziyarats and all of that. This is all, may Allah bless you all. But we don't need to always give the time of Muharram is a time of mu'idha. It's a time of admonition. We don't always need a pat on the back. We need to talk about the things that are there in front of us that we need to pay heed to today. So I'm not being all negative. My point is that we know, mashallah, we're doing many, many things. But clearly the tide is still running against us. Today we have 2 types of religion. And I'll conclude on this note. We have 2 types of religion, and we'll pick up on it tomorrow. We have 2 types of religion. Again, all this comes back to the line from Ali Yasin of Sahib al-Zaman, that all truth is that which you are happy with. And everything that is invalid, disliked, batil, untrue, is a manifestation, is related to your anger, to your dislike. That haq and batil pivot on Sahib al-Zaman, on his like or dislike of it. So there are 2 types of religion here then. Now we ask ourselves, which one would Sahib al-Zaman kind of choose? Religion 1 is something called therapeutic deism, which basically states, okay, God exists, fine, check mark. God wants people to be good and nice, check mark. The goal of life is to be happy, feel good and feel good about oneself, check mark. D, God does not need to be particularly involved in all the intimate details of someone's life, except when he's really needed to resolve a problem. E, good people go to heaven when they die. How simple of a pipe dream this is. Without defining any of it, except for saying that, well, he doesn't cheat or commit murder. Like, really? Like, is that the standard? Good people. What does good mean, Baba? What does good mean? Who defines it? Go look how Imam Sadiq has defined good. Most of us will be some of us may be running out the door and say, this sheikh is crazy. If we really look at how Ahlul Bayt have defined these concepts, how the Quran defines these concepts, and how the Ahlul Bayt have shed light upon it, we will realize that yes, most of these things are good, except for obviously the part that God is not involved in all the intimate details of someone's life. But these things entail suffering, hard work, the making of very difficult decisions, often making us unpopular. And it doesn't mean we're going to be happy. It doesn't mean who says we deserve to be happy always? Making the right choice is more important than being happy, and maybe someday we'll be happy with making the right choice. Because some of us have to be at a high level of iman in order to be happy when we make the right choice. Whoever said we have to be happy? Like, I really don't know. Where does the Quran tell us that? We have to make the right choice. If we're unhappy with it, or it tastes a little salty or a little bitter when we do it, maybe it's supposed to. That's how we get stronger. That's how we build resilience. That's how we build our armor of taqwa and iman. Not through this feel-good, pipe dream, hippie, liberalist, religious, this carnival religion. It's complete nonsense. And statistics say that the vast majority of people think, a vast number of people at least, think of religion in this way. It's just something to make you happy. But what is happiness? Whoa, that's a difficult question. I don't want to actually, I'd have to go now read the hadith and ahkam and Quran, and I'd have to actually know what it is then. So people use words without even knowing what any of it means. They just throw it around like they're candies. Oh, and good people go to heaven. What does that mean? It's all unicorns and mermaids? We're not 4 years old. Like, we gotta wake up and be serious about deen if we want it to survive in our life. Because this whole unicorn, mermaid, childish approach to spirituality is not gonna cut it. And there's a reason why Christianity is where it is today. And if we learn anything from history, maybe we don't want to end up in that situation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And tomorrow night, inshallah, we'll finish the discussion. How many of us know the story of Abdul Rahman bin Mas'ud and his father Mas'ud bin Hajjaj? Allama Zanjani and others report in their books that the father and son were Shia of Hussein and Ashab from the beginning. And they were among the famous and courageous warriors on the day of Ashura. That they stood to fight in front of their Mawla with all their courage. And in fact, they're mentioned in Ziyarat al-Nahiya of Sahib al-Zaman. Another very special person that fought on the plains of Karbala is Wahab. Wahab ibn Habab al-Kalbi. He, as some of the traditions tell us, was a convert from Christianity to Islam. And his caravan met Imam al-Hussein's caravan on the way towards Karbala. And his story is a story of the sacrifice of an entire family. And it's a very profound story. He was just newly married. His caravan intersects the caravan of Imam al-Hussein. He embraces Islam. And the day of Ashura arrives. Habib ibn Madahir and Burayd stand up for battle. Wahab gets the permission of Abu Abdullah to go out into battle. And now he's between two people. On one hand, his mother is encouraging him to go towards martyrdom, to chase after martyrdom. On the other hand, his wife, his newly married wife, his new spouse, is telling him is not wanting to lose her husband. So what does he do? He's between two things. He goes back to his mother and he says, "Mother, are you happy with me?" She says, "No, I will not be satisfied with you until you are martyred in front of Hussein sallallahu alayhi." And on the other hand, his loving wife could not stand the idea and the thought of losing her husband. What a situation he was in. The wife tells him, "Do not bring distress upon me." His mother urges him to go into the battlefield. He goes and he fights. Some traditions state that he killed 19 horsemen, or he managed to fight 19 horsemen until his hand was cut off. Subhanallah. Then his wife charges out with a rod, turns to her husband. Imam al-Hussein signals to her to return to the camp. She grabs the pant leg of her husband. Imagine this scene. She's grabbing the pant leg of her husband, the thobe of her husband. She says, "I shall not return until I am killed with you." Now she wants to be martyred with her husband. At this point, Imam al-Hussein insists that she return to the camp. She goes back to the camp. Imam al-Hussein notices this desperate situation. He says to her that your reward is from my progeny, the Ahlul Bayt. Your reward is khair. He's comforting this woman for the loss of her husband. Allama Zanjani says that the husband continued to fight. He continued to fight so valiantly until he was martyred himself, until he was killed himself. Ya Aba Abdullah. The traditions say that one of his hands were cut off and was taken to Umar ibn Sa'd la'anahullah. The newly young married woman comes out into the battlefield. She's being mocked by Umar ibn Sa'd. And she says that, is this the worst you can do? Umar ibn Sa'd then order that Wahab be decapitated. They removed the head of Wahab. La'natullahi ala Umar ibn Sa'd. And he threw the head of Wahab into the camp of Hussein. Look at the depravity of these men and what they did. Wahab's mother begins to kiss the head of her son. She begins to kiss the head of her son over and over and again, and she begins to wipe the blood from her son's face. She says, "Oh my son, all praise is due to Allah who brought light to my face through your shahadat for Hussein." Look at the dua of this mother for her son. That all praise is due to Allah who brought nur to my face through your shahadat for Imam al-Hussein. That let the tears flow from your eyes for this musibah. She begins to wipe the blood and the sand from her husband's face. That now the wife is with Wahab. Then Allama Majlisi tells us that Shimr then sees her. He orders a boy named Rustam. What does this boy named Rustam do? This is such a torturous moment here. Rustam takes a rod. What he now does with this rod, we don't even want to describe. Needless to say, the woman was martyred. She was martyred at the end of a rod. You can only imagine what he did with this. Hussein cries out. He says, "May Allah bring light to her face and gather her with the Zahra on the day of judgment." Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a shafa'at of the ashab of Hussein and the martyrs on the day of Karbala, for the sacrifice of this mother, for the sacrifice of this wife. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal our wounds for their sake, inshallah. Bihaqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Matima Hussein.
Hussein, Mawla Hussein, 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 Mawla. Ya Allah, in your haram, here I am here. In your haram, here I am here. Under your dome, breathing your air. In your haram, here I am here. Under your dome, breathing your air. Zainab's heart, oh Ali's dear. Zainab's heart, oh Ali's dear. Taha's son, Fatima's tear. Zainab's heart, oh Ali's dear. Zainab's heart, oh Ali's dear. Taha's son, Fatima's tear. Stand by my side in the grave, Hussein, my soul, come to save. Stand by my side in the grave, Hussein, my soul, come to save. With these tears I have no fear that you will be there for me. My Mawla, my Sultan, Hussein, you're my Quran. My Mawla, my Sultan, Hussein, you're my Quran. Even from my grave I'm calling your name. Hussein, Mawla Hussein, Hussein. Who will intercede for you? حسين مولاه كن شفيعي يا أبا عبد الله. حسين مولاه حسين حسين. Yallah, empty hands, where are my deeds? Empty hands, where are my deeds? Empty hands, where are my deeds? If you do not intercede, empty hands, where are my deeds? If you do not intercede, on the day when mothers wail, on the day when mothers wail, abandon the children they feed. And when the earth and the sun collide is when everyone, and when the earth and the sun collide is when everyone will be called by their Imam. An angel will raise the alarm. Don't leave me, come save me. Ya Hussein, come aid me. Don't leave me, come save me. Ya Hussein, come aid me. Even on that day I'm calling your name. Hussein, Mawla Hussein. Hussein, Mawla Hussein. Hussein. May Allah bless your voices. Hussein, Hussein, Yallah, and when the sand on me is thrown, and when the sand on me is thrown, and when my loved ones have all gone, and when the sand on me is thrown, and when my loved ones have all gone, left me alone in this strange home, left me alone in this strange home. Hussein, you won't leave me alone. And when the grave is crushing, and when the grave is crushing, breaking my chest, come listen. And when the grave is crushing, breaking my chest, come listen. Do you remember the days I beat my chest calling out your name? My Mawla, I'm certain you won't leave me hurting. My Mawla, I'm certain you won't leave me hurting. Even on that day I'm calling your name. Hussein, Mawla Hussein. Hussein, Mawla Hussein. Hussein, Hussein, Khadim. Hussein, Hussein. Yallah, and when the sand on me is thrown, and when my sand on me is thrown, and when my loved ones have all gone, left me alone in the strange home, left me alone in the strange home. Hussein, you won't leave me alone. And when the grave is crushing, breaking my chest, come listen. And when the grave is crushing, breaking my chest, come listen. Do you remember the days I beat my chest calling out your name? My Mawla, I'm certain you won't leave me hurting. My Mawla, I'm certain you won't leave me hurting. Even on that day I'm calling your name. Hussein, Mawla Hussein. Raise your hands. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein. والله انت شرف للبرية، انت شرف للبرية، انت عزيز الزكية، انت شرف للبرية، انت عزيز الزكية. فدوى اروح لرضيعك، فدوى اروح لرضيعك، فدوى اروح لرغية. لو نزلوني بقبر، لو نزلوني بقبر، لو اوقفت بالحشر، لو نزلوني بقبر، لو اوقفت بالحشر. كل املي انت يا حسين، يا حسين ادري تحضرني وبجيتك تنورني. سلطاني سلطاني يا حسين يا قرآني، سلطاني سلطاني يا حسين يا قرآني، سلطاني سلطاني يا حسين يا قرآني، سلطان سلطاني يا حسين يا قرآني. حتى بالمحشر نادي باسمك حسين مولا حسين، حسين. Call his name so he will be your shafi'. مولا حسين، حسين يا ابن الزهراء، حسين، حسين يا الله. My guardian, watch over me. My guardian, watch over me. My medicine, my remedy. Standing alone, who's watching thee? Standing alone, who's watching thee? On that day, under the heat. Asghar resting on your chest, Asghar resting on your chest, an arrow resting in his neck. Mawla, Mawla, Ya Hussein, where was I to share your pain? I left him who needs me and asked him don't leave me. Even on that day I'm calling your name, Hussein. Hussein. Assalamu alayki ya Zainab al-Kubra. What did you have to see from the family of Ali Yasin? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاه أبو الفضل العباس. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن. أجل الله فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائي في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك التوعى وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على